All right, good morning. Hello and welcome to the Youth Solutions Jobs for Michigan's Graduates Virtual Employer Engagement Initiative. For those who don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Bernhard. I am the Partnership Engagement Manager with Youth Solutions, the statewide nonprofit overseeing the Jobs for Michigan's Graduates program, commonly called JMG. I couldn't be more pleased to welcome all of you here today. I want to extend an especially warm welcome to our friends from Steelcase who took time out of their busy day to be here today, including two joining us all the way from San Francisco. As I heard previously from Cordell Zachary, a friend from Steelcase, meeting with youth today will be the highlight of our day. To you as youth, know that this event was designed exclusively for you. At Youth Solutions and the JMG program, we are committed to ensuring that all Michigan youth are educated, employed, and career-bound. As such, we will help you explore as many career pathways as possible prior to receiving your high school diploma or GED. So in the weeks and months to come, you will be invited to attend many of these events featuring large and small employers from every major career cluster in our state, as well as colleges and universities, so that you can be exposed to many opportunities as possible. So with that, I would like to review what we'll be covering today. So we will, after I'm done, I'll be turning it over to Will Maurer, who will be doing an overview of Steelcase. Cordell Zachary will be then moderating 4 different professionals from Steelcase about their positions, including Jason Murphy with manufacturing, Joginder Sani with STEM, Christina Downs with Communications, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Bailey Davis, Industrial Design. We will then move into questions and answers and close it out. So a few housekeeping items that I ask you to be mindful of today. This session is being recorded so that we can share it with other educators and youth who are unable to attend today. We encourage you to stay on camera as much as you can, unless you need to step away. We ask you to mute your microphones and to populate the chat box with questions, which we will then raise at the end of our session. Excuse me. At the end, you will also have the opportunity to go up to actually unmute yourselves and ask questions yourselves. We will then be sending out a survey at the end of the event to ask you to fill it out, because Steelcase is already planning their next level event that will be designed based on the feedback you give them today. With that, I welcome Will Maurer with Steelcase.
Well, thank you. Much appreciated. So I'm going to share my screen here. First of all, I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining. We're excited to get this opportunity to talk to you about Steelcase and what we are about. So, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, good. Just always got to make sure. So our purpose at Steelcase is to unlock human promise by transforming work, workers, and the workplace. So we are a global company whose innovation, research, design specialties really are all focused around ensuring that people have incredible experiences at work. So now I'm going to show you a video that I think encapsulates that.
It started with a fire. In 1912, we saw a problem. Wooden buildings, lots of paper, people smoking. Fire was just a spark away. So we designed a metal wastebasket that wouldn't burn. It may seem like a simple idea now, but that's what innovation looks like. Solving a problem by doing things in new ways. Over 4,000 patents later, we've learned a lot, and it's made us who we are today. We're makers. We make things that solve problems all over the world, using innovative materials and world-class manufacturing, everything from architecture to furniture to technology. And we partner with the world's best brands to give our customers easy access to more choices. We're hackers, constantly researching, experimenting, and exploring the boundaries of what's possible. We test ideas on ourselves, so we're sure they'll work before they get to you. We're listeners. Design thinking is our DNA. We observe how people work to discover their unmet and emerging needs. We're learners. Our relationships with thought leaders, think tanks, universities, and customers challenge us and make ideas better. We're global, with 45 locations in 17 countries. Together with our experienced distribution network, we're committed to helping you, wherever you are, with whatever you need. A lot's changed since 1912, but one thing stayed the same. We put you at the center of everything we do, because you should love how you work.
So I think if you were to ask any employee, one of the things that they value most about their time at Steelcase is our values, as you can see listed here. The culture of the company and its approach towards advocacy work, giving back to the community, and being an integral part of the community is something I think that all of us take pride in, which is why that we are excited to be speaking with you today. So with that said, I will turn it over to Cordell.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction, Will. And again, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Dan, for setting this up and allowing us to speak directly to the students. So typically we'd be able to do a tour, walk you around the space, and you speak to some of the employees in their actual habitat. But today we're going to do it a little bit differently. So we'll be talking to a few of our employees from Steelcase about what they do, a little bit about their educational journey, and we'll go through 4 different employees in wildly different roles. So we'll start off with Jason Murphy. Right now he should be at the plant, so I just want to bring up Jason Murphy and introduce him. How you doing, Jason? No, I saw him on here. It looks like you're muted, Jason.
All right, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my name is Jason Murphy. I am a manufacturing engineer at Steelcase at our Kentwood West plant. Yeah, I've been here for about 5 years now. It was 5 years this past August, and I'm enjoying my role here. I'm enjoying the company. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, so I'm pretty happy here.
Awesome. So let's dive into that. So what exactly is your role in the team that you work on at Steelcase?
So my role as a manufacturing engineer is mainly in, let me take my glasses off, mainly in product PD&L, we call it, which is product design and launch. Steelcase is always bringing in new product to the market. And one of the biggest parts of my job is to help bring in those new products to our plant. So, and I'm mostly in the desking area, which, you know, we have chairs, we have seating, we have desks, and we have large cases, you know, large filing cabinets. My main focus is in desking. So if you're looking at some of the items, some of the pictures that's in the slideshow and the video that they just showed, you're looking at a desk that you're probably only noticing the legs on it and the top structure. But what you're not really seeing is there's probably hundreds of parts in that, from brackets that's underneath and parts that's within the legs or feet that you may not see to give it strength. So my main job is to bring those parts and create the manufacturing process so that we can cut, form the steel, paint it, pack it safely, and send it out the door so that it reaches the customer. Not sure if anyone has seen the videos of how it's made, those TV shows, how it's made. They used to be one of my favorite TV shows to watch, but that gives you kind of an idea of what I do in the plant.
Awesome, thank you. And you have a really kind of unique skill set. Could you tell me a little bit about your educational journey? Like, you know, in high school, did you picture being in this role? What was that journey to getting where you're at now?
So coming from high school, I wanted to be an engineer because for a couple of reasons. I was really good at the math and sciences, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, calculus and physics, and I was actually thinking if I wanted to be an architect. And one of the things that brought me to engineering for two reasons is, as an engineer, it makes me, at least in my opinion, at the time, as a high school student, I'd be more adept to fix things around the house, than as an architect, with electrical issues. And I wanted to design roller coasters. I mean, that was the big, if you would have asked me at the time if I would have seen myself as an engineer working on office furniture, I would have never thought that. That seems like the most boring thing to do. I want to design roller coasters. I used to love going to Cedar Point and riding on all the roller coasters there. So I'm like, that's what I want to do. And it didn't turn out that way. Now I'm here, and I actually enjoy it. I really love it. Office furniture, it sounds boring, but when you're in the plant, there's a lot going on, and it's really exciting. So.
Awesome. So go to stay in that kind of high school and thinking about your mindset then, is there anything you would go back and tell your high school self in preparation for where you're at now?
Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, I can probably write a book about that. But a couple of things that I would just point out is ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. If you feel insecure that you should know something, you got to get to someone and ask those questions. And that's one thing I like about Steelcase is everyone is really open. I never had to feel that insecurities if I didn't know something. Everyone is willing to pass knowledge down. And the next part is I'm not sure how all the students' learning is going right now with this pandemic. Obviously, I'm wearing a mask for a reason at the plant, but I'm not sure how you guys are doing learning. You're probably having to be a little bit more self-sustaining and rely on yourself more than I did at the time. I kind of relied on the structure of high school. You go to class every day and you have all these classes every day. Once you go to college, it's completely different. You'll have, and no one prepared me for this. I remember when I got my first schedule in college, I was shocked. I was like, why don't I have all these classes every day? When you go to college, you'll probably have a class 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes once a week, which means you have to really be structured and you have to rely on yourself to stay on task, because if you're just relying on that old high school way of going to class every day, you can fall behind really easily. And I fell behind early on easily because I just wasn't used to that, to having to have my own structure and having to manage my time on my own. So some of you may be doing that now. I think some high school, I spoke with a few people whose high schools are only doing 2 or 3 classes a day, or when they're going in school so they can manage the class sizes, they're having their classes once or twice a week or 3 times a week. So they're getting a little bit of that approach, but your time management and staying on task is a really big thing. So.
Agreed. Very much agreed. You mentioned you're there with the mask. You mentioned how COVID kind of has shifted education. How has it shifted your work, and how have you kind of maintained your mental health through all of that?
So it made it very difficult. No one was prepared for this. We didn't know what to do. So in the plant, as a manufacturing engineer, we had to refocus our resources into enabling safe social distancing in the plant, which is really tough because when you're making something and you're moving it from one area to another, you often need 2 people who are really close to handle certain things. Sometimes we have really large, heavy parts where it's not ergonomic for one person to handle. So you got to have 2 people, and you're passing it from one person to another. If you're going down an assembly line, there's going to be close contact. So we kind of stopped all of our product development initiatives and focused on social distancing in the plant. And there's ways by creating walls and areas so that people can't come in contact with each other. Face masks, this is required wall to wall in the plant. No matter, I'm in a private room right now. No one's here. I still got to wear this. and of course, plastic shields. So it was interesting. I mean, it was difficult. That's why we're here, to solve problems as an engineer. But it's also kind of fun because I've never done this before. No one here has ever done this before. So it helped us be creative, and a little bit of that ingenuity we had to bring to the job here.
Awesome. That's perfect. And we appreciate the work that you do for us in the plan, man. We'll come back to you at the end of these kind of individual interviews. We'll open it up for questions. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you coming in, Jason. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Thank you.
Awesome. So now we're going to shift a little bit, go to our IT techie person here, and we're going to go with Joe Gendersani. And he is an applications engineer at Steelcase, and I'll allow you to introduce yourself, Joe Gender.
Awesome. Thanks, Cordell. So my name is Joe Gendersani, but most people here call me Joe. I was born and raised in New York, and I'm currently based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'm 27, and I've been working at Steelcase for just over 5 years at this point. And that time at Steelcase has been split between a bunch of different jobs, from unloading trailers to overseeing paperwork to where I am today in our IT department.
Awesome. And I would love to start there. You've had an interesting pathway to the IT organization. Could you tell me a little bit about that educational journey and what that's looked like for you?
Yeah. So it is not very straightforward. My mom was working as a nurse for most of her life, so she pushed me really hard to go into medicine, and it didn't really turn out that well. I started out with the intention to go into it, and I did some time volunteering at a hospital in a crazy intense unit, and I decided that it really wasn't for me. So I kind of shifted track a little bit, and I thought, retail pharmacy is kind of cool. It's a little more laid back. You're in a booth and you're filling out prescriptions. So I ended up coming to Michigan with the intention of going to a pharmacy college here. And I started working at Steelcase, and I got exposure to their IT department, and with some of the learning, and they had some tuition reimbursement. So I continued working in our warehouses through college, and I graduated a couple years ago and got a full-time position in IT.
That's awesome, man. If I'm not mistaken, you participated in Grand Circus, correct?
That is correct, yep.
What was that experience like? I guess I just want to kind of highlight some of the organizations and resources we have in our community to help kind of propel and switch maybe careers.
Yeah, so most of the experience that I had prior to going to Grand Circus, which is a coding boot camp, was really execution, manufacturing, things of that nature. But Steelcase sponsored a coding boot camp, which was like a heads down 13-week kind of deep dive into what it might be if you were a software engineer. And that kind of really opened my eyes into what I could do, and the options that I had for my career. The nice thing about IT is that if you want to switch your career at any time, it's really self-taught. So there's a lot of people who, when they're in college, they know that they want to be programmers or software engineers or whatever you want to call us. But I would say there's more people who have shifted their career paths and ended up in IT than not. So I actually work with a lot of people. One of my best friends is an ex-marriage counselor, but he does software engineering now. I work with someone who was an English teacher in Korea for a while, and she's a software engineer. So I'd say, keep your mind open and just let your career take you.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by your path, I guess, to where you are at now. What would you say? So now you're in your role. You're working with a lot of different teams within IT. What would you say are the characteristics of someone who is successful in your role or in your team or in IT? What are those characteristics there?
Yeah, so I actually do a lot of interviewing for prospective IT interns that we have. And a lot of folks will practice for like a super technical interview where they might ask you to write code on the board, or like they'll practice for something that might be really technical. But what I really look for is the ability to learn and kind of the curiosity. So if your personality is like, all right, there's this puzzle and I'm stuck on this puzzle and it's really annoying me, I'm going to Google and I'm going to try to figure it out. That's really like a key trait that you need if you're going to be working in IT. Because a lot of the problems that you face won't have straightforward answers. And most of the time, your coworkers won't have the answers either. So a lot of it is going to be, I have the autonomy of just going out and trying to solve that problem myself. second characteristic trait, which is not something that they teach you in college, is you have to be friendly and personable. So no one from the business is going to go back to someone that they don't like for help. So it's really important for me to be able to maintain those relationships, which is kind of weird when you think about a software developer, but it's definitely there. Yeah, those things are the most important. So curiosity, the ability to learn, and being cool.
Two great characteristics. And I love that you mentioned the internship program at Steelcase. It was an awesome way for me to get my foot in the door at Steelcase and get some real life experience while I was still enrolled in college. And now with IT specifically, how much do you value an IT internship versus just experience, maybe coding and doing it on your own time? Do you suggest internships or focusing on just getting good at your craft?
I would say that once you have that base level of knowledge, there's a lot of really good online resources to get into coding or software engineering in general. Code Academy is one of them. But once you have like that base understanding, a lot of that transitions very easily. So I would say that an internship is actually one of the most valuable things that you can do. The difference between learning in a classroom setting or learning in your own setting versus learning in the enterprise world is 100% different, like the opposite side of the coin. So getting some experience, diving into the deep end and learning how to swim in the business world is super, super valuable.
Awesome. And I saw we have a question in the chat, and feel free to drop any questions you have during this. Again, we'll be kind of fielding a lot of those questions at the end, but we did get a question now that asks if our internships are paid. So our internships are paid. We have both a summer internship model where you'll spend 3 months at Steelcase and working on some of our projects. We also have a year-round intern model where, if you're a local college student looking for opportunities, you can work year-round with some of the teams here. So internship, again, is a great way to not only get paid, but also learn about Steelcase. And last question for you, Joe. If you can go back to your high school self and provide some advice, what would you tell yourself?
So back in high school, I definitely wasn't exposed to any of this stuff yet. So it's kind of hard for me to offer myself advice. But what I would say is if you think that this is something that you might be interested in, go out and try some of those free online courses like Code Academy or Udemy are a few of those that are like a really good stepping stone. So it can be fun to kind of pick up and solve some of those puzzles. And if you think it's cool and you think that you can be good at it, you can definitely be a programmer. It's not something that you don't really have to dedicate yourself to learning it. It's more of a personality trait. If you enjoy learning, that's pretty much the only prerequisite to being a programmer.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. And again, always intrigued by your journey and how that played out for you. So again, we'll leave some questions at the end for you. So thank you. And now we'll move to the communications world. And a good friend of mine, Christina Downs, she is leading our DEI communications, and I'll let her explain what that role looks like for her.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Christina Downs. I'm happy to be here with you virtually. So as Cordell mentioned, I am the Global Communications lead of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And hopefully some of you have heard that term, diversity, equity, inclusion. It's come up a lot this year, but it's always been important to Steelcase and really something that businesses are taking into account, I would say, over the last 10 years especially. And that really just means that everyone who's at the company feels seen and heard and able to participate in our culture. And so that's always a work in progress, right? As we know in our society, that's a work in progress right now. So it's a really exciting job. I'm literally a month in. But my background is in communications, and that's kind of core to what I've been doing at Steelcase.
Awesome. And Christina, I think, again, you have an interesting journey here to Steelcase as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that educational journey and then, your entry into Steelcase and what that looked like?
Sure. Yeah. So I went to Howard University for college. I'm very proud of that. You may have heard Howard come up recently because Vice President-elect Kamala Harris went there. So we Howard grads like to brag about that a lot. But I went there and I studied journalism and was very serious about journalism. I ran the school newspaper there. I interned at a bunch of news stations and thought I was going to be the next producer. And then I sort of took a little bit of a surprising turn where someone approached me about business school for getting a graduate degree. And I thought, that might, can't hurt. And because I always knew that I wanted to be in a management position and I always had an interest in business. Both my parents are small business owners, so I'd grown up in that world. So it was one of those kind of happy accidents where I ended up getting a business degree from Wake Forest University, which is in North Carolina. And then Steelcase happened to be recruiting there. And so that's where my relationship with Steelcase formed. So then I started to meet all the great people at Steelcase. I went to visit the headquarters in Grand Rapids a couple of times and was just really lucky that some of the folks that I met there took an interest in me and suggested that we build a customized rotational program. So sort of like at some companies, they'll have leadership development programs where they'll essentially have you as a new hire go on a series of rotations throughout the company so that you can get a good idea of what that company does. So maybe you're in communications, maybe you're in marketing. So in my case, I started off in brand communications at Steelcase. And then I went to our Workspace Futures group, which is really our research group that studies how people work. And then I went to our applied research consulting group, which is our consulting firm. So just an incredible experience as a new hire to be able to see such different parts of the company and to have a company custom design a rotational program for me was amazing. So that was my entry point. And then from there, I've had several jobs in just 5 years. And so I think this is like my 6th team. And yeah, just had some incredible experiences.
Yes, you have. And that customizing piece, as you talked about, I think even in this role that you're in now, it's new. Could you tell us a little bit about your role and what kind of spurred the need for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was I've just had such a weird, I think I've also created a brand for myself within Steelcase that I'm open to taking roles that have not been created yet. Because I would say the past 3, I've been on new teams for new roles. So I would say it was a kind of combination of a couple of things. We recently had a new head of global talent, which is really our head of human resources. That's what we call it at Steelcase, Donna Flynn. And so she came on really at the beginning of COVID. So if you can imagine starting your role and you're managing all of people and then COVID hits. So that was, I'm sure, a wild time for her and still has been. And so she was restructuring, how do we think about DE&I? And I had been having conversations with that team because it's something I'm personally passionate about. And so that's one of my pieces of advice is no matter what you're interning for, when you start working, if you have a passion, like lean into that because you never know where it's going to take you. So I had just been having those conversations because I really cared about DEI. And it started to become apparent that there was a big need for communications, right? If you're doing all this great work, but you don't have a really great way to let people know about it, then sometimes it's not as effective. So I really started to have those conversations and that led to the creation of my role essentially as the communications lead. And then of course I interviewed and things like that. But what I'm really doing right now is thinking about how we tell those stories about what we're doing, both to our own people inside of Steelcase, because we're all as individual employees affected by what goes on in our company, but also externally to our customers, to people who come to our website, to great folks like you who interact with our company in so many different ways. And so my role is now to think about how do we tell those stories in really compelling ways so that people are moved and have a really great interaction with Steelcase and that we can demonstrate our commitment to DEI, which, like I said, is a work in progress.
Thank you. I think you just have such a vital role in our company, and it's such a unique one. So I love how you kind of expounded on that. Now I'm going to take you back to high school a little bit. I remember in high school, I went on an HBCU tour. And I got to see a lot of different HBCUs, meet some of the Greek organizations. And I guess my question for you is, how has, attending the Real HU kind of shaped your, I guess, your time as a professional and who you are now? So could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it is quite literally shaped everything about who I am today. It was the best decision I've ever made. I probably applied to 20, 25 colleges. I was a complete crazy person about getting out of Georgia, which is where I was from, and I just wanted to see the world. But it was also really important to me to have this experience where I could feel seen and heard. So now that I'm even saying that, I think my career is coming full circle. But yeah, Howard is such an incredible place. Historically, Black colleges and universities are so vital. And I think a lot of people think that nowadays maybe they're not, right? We're in this post-racial society, which I would challenge anybody to double click on how untrue that is. But those colleges and universities were really created because people like me couldn't go to a regular institution, like a state school or even an Ivy League, right? We were excluded from those spaces and from those schools. So we built our own, and that legacy runs true today. And people, like Thurgood Marshall and Chadwick Boseman and Kamala Harris and so many greats that, the list is too long, have been at my school, and that's just one HBCU. So the legacy runs deep, and there's a great responsibility there. And so I think that's really shaped who I am and how I see the world, and then how I go out into not only thinking about myself as an individual, but also my community and who I want to see more of in the workplace.
Such a great answer. Thank you, Christina. And this would be the final, the kind of common thread through all of my questionings. But yeah, if you can go back in time and tell your high school self something to prepare them for the future, what would you say?
Yeah, I thought about this and like, what was my high school self even thinking about? And it's so different now, I think, for people who are in high school. But I would say to be open, because like I said, even in high school, I was very set on journalism. And then my life obviously took a series of winding paths that were unexpected, but also really great. And so I think just if you get an internship that seems interesting, be open to it. If someone gives you some advice and you think, I've never thought about that career path. So yeah, I would just tell my high school self to stay open.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
And, I'm pretty jealous of you. You're down there I'm not sure if you're in Georgia or San Fran, but I know you're in warmer weather than, than Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I guess we'll stay in the warmer states, and we'll go over to Bailey Davis, who I believe is in San Francisco right now, joining us pretty early in the morning, but want to introduce you as an industrial designer, and we'd love to hear more about who you are, Bailey.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, and thanks for moderating. I'm Bailey. I'm an industrial designer with Steelcase. I'm actually from a super small town in Pennsylvania, like 6,000 people, and have been migrating west ever since. I went to college in Cleveland, Ohio at the Cleveland Institute of Art, and moved to San Francisco for an internship, kind of quite a radical move for maybe not a big guarantee. But once here, kind of got pulled into the Steelcase world and have been kind of in it for the last 6 years in various degrees. And currently I'm working on a team, kind of a scrappy design centric, almost consultancy node within the company that is focused on client engagement and upfront custom product development. So typically Steelcase does robust, amazing research into why we make the products that we make. We're solving problems, unique needs in the workplace, and it will go from that research to then being designed and then into a product that the masses can buy. And Steelcase really saw a need to meet clients where they are and to offer them something that solves their unique issues for their specific users, employees, workspaces, not everyone is facing the exact same challenges. So how can we give them something that's uniquely theirs in function and aesthetic? So.
Perfect. And you have a very, again, another unique position. What are some, I guess, degrees and college programs that would make somebody successful, maybe for a role such as yours?
Yeah. I would say, at least, even without thinking about the educational training or the classes, resources abound, right, for kind of gaining a lot of skills that I gained in college of, visually communicating my ideas and working with my hands to create a physical representation of what something may look like. I think at the core of someone being successful in a role like mine or as an industrial designer really comes with, it's a very people-centric job, really being a good listener and being empathetic to what others are going through, especially on our team. I think a lot of critical thinking skills, ability to see kind of a big picture of like, how is this really going to affect something larger than this one thing that I'm ultimately is my output, while also being able to focus on the details of that smaller output, right? Yeah, and I think generally just good communication skills, and that doesn't always necessarily mean being able to talking to people is really important, but also, are you able to tell a story with your ideas or visually communicate it in a successful way that gets your peers on board and the client who, has so many different diverse backgrounds. They're not coming from a design point of view like I am, right? So adaptability, I think, is big.
Definitely. And how, we posed this question, but how do you see your work kind of evolving, especially now with COVID changing the way we work? Do you see any kind of pathway for an evolution for your role?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think, so the team I'm on, Studio B, we've been around for just about 3 years. So even within, born in 1912 Steelcase, like we're a very young team. And even in those 3 years, we've changed dramatically. We've grown. So now there's a San Francisco based team that, most of the team is based in Grand Rapids. So that's exciting that we're going to where our clients are. I think across the board, I imagine that we're going to continue to grow as more and more clients across the nation and maybe one day the world, as we are a global company, are kind of demanding these custom solutions for their employees. And I think as it relates to COVID and the pandemic and how it's altered how people are going back to school, how people are going back to the workplace, which is, obviously shaking up Steelcase dramatically. Teams like Studio B, I think, are going to be critical in helping deliver the research message, unique solutions to customers that make them feel confident about bringing their employees back to the office. I think there's, everyone's feeling that we're missing others, we're missing, being in a physical space, something different than our homes. And, employees, I think, are just looking for guidance and looking for space layouts and products that help them get there, that our team can definitely help with.
Definitely. Yeah, as I think about the evolution of our organization, I feel like teams like yours are very vital for us in leading that. And you talked about a little bit about your journey out west, stopping in Ohio for college, and then now you're in San Fran. Speaking to the students, how valuable is is traveling and being in different, I guess, geographies? How's that helped you out in your journey?
Oh man, I feel like that's been critical to how I got where I am now. I think not even just having like small hometown like syndrome, or I don't know, like just the desire to break out and to experience has been something, you know, deep within me since I can remember. And I think it's invaluable, not even just to my profession, but just my personal life. All of the things I've gotten to see and, you know, getting to share with my family, like what I'm experiencing here and the differences and how it's grown my relationships, how I'm better able to serve, you know, clients in my current role. And yeah, I don't know. I think I always knew I was going to leave home. And, you know, at first going to Cleveland, Ohio, that definitely wasn't very far at first, right? I was able to still get home and, but yeah, kind of pulling the plug to come here was pretty dramatic, but I wouldn't change it for anything. And I think it's soak up as much as you can of the world. It's big and vast and different, and yeah.
Well, I know Steelcase is happy to have you and that you pulled that plug in San Fran. So, and last question for you: if you can go back to you're in your small town still, go back to the young Bailey. What would you tell yourself in high school?
I didn't then, and I don't know, or I don't now, and I don't know if anyone ever does, but I definitely didn't have it figured out in high school. But, you know, I have been so fulfilled by my journey to go from a small town to go to art school, which I think can oftentimes be seen as a poor choice. Like, oh, you're not going to get a job going to art school, you know, I don't know. And getting here and being where I am now, I kind of would tell myself to continue to trust my gut a little bit on the decisions I was making, and, you know, luckily the support I was being provided by my family to pursue what in their eyes was not going to be it was a very uncommon path to them. And I would also tell my high school self to maybe take some shop classes. Building has been crucial to my job, and really not having exposure to making quite this level until college. I think some of that in high school would have helped. So,
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Bailey. And thank you to all of our panelists that, you know, took time out of their week and said, hey, I want to speak directly to the students and share my journey. I appreciate the transparency and being here today. So we got a little bit of time, about 13 more minutes. And I really want to open it up for any questions that the students have, any questions that may have came up from what some of the speakers have shared. I really want this time to be for anybody who has any inquiries about Steelcase, about our panelists. So I'll open it up. Feel free to drop it in the chat or unmute and say it out loud. It's up to you.
And Cordell, I've had a few questions come my way. How does Steelcase culture compare to other company cultures that you've worked for?
Well, that's a great first question. I'll open it up again. I'll let the panelists be the start of the show and open up to any of the panelists that may want to answer.
Can I answer this one?
Of course.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I used to work at a relatively large company before working at Steelcase, and the culture, it pretty much sucked. It was a tough job, and the culture didn't make it more enjoyable. It was not a good work environment because everyone kind of swept stuff under the rug. When issues came up, if people had half the answer, they'd give you the half the answer or what they thought they meant, and then when you need to provide that information to the customer, it would become obvious that nobody knew what they were doing, and you would do what you had to do to sweep it on the rug. Here at Steelcase, there's a level of accountability and collaboration The collaboration is the real big thing. Everyone works together in a great manner and hold themselves accountable. And as I mentioned before, that you never have to feel that insecurity that you don't know the right answers to everything. Part of being a professional or in a leadership role or just growing is not necessarily having the right answers, but it's asking the right questions. And you never have to feel insecure about not knowing the answer to something, because we're here to solve the answers. Often the time there is no answer there. We got to figure it out. So the culture of collaboration and accountability is a big thing. One reason why I like working here.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I definitely think that, working for Steelcase and having been working for Steelcase for the last 6 years in different teams, it's very apparent and clear that Steelcase deeply and truly cares about their employees. And especially me being a remote worker, I'm not at the headquarters, I'm not on campus, I'm not kind of what we joke as the mothership, It's like I still feel very much a part of the Steelcase family, even from way out here in California. And I think that's powerful and can be hard for a company the size of Steelcase. So.
And Bailey, there was a question for you. What was your position again? Somebody's say that they did not catch your title.
Yes, so I am a senior industrial designer, which usually have this level after about 5 years in the industry. And to kind of paint generally a picture of industrial design, my ethos of industrial design is really problem solving the function, the value, the aesthetics of something that is mutually beneficial for Steelcase to make. It can work with our plants and it can work with the materials that we work with, and it's solving the unique issues of our clients. And the team I'm working on is Studio B, and it is a kind of client-driven design consultancy nestled within this corporation, designing custom products using Steelcase manufacturing and resources to solve those issues.
Thank you. What are some of the qualities managers are looking for in potential interns, and what will give students the best chance of obtaining an internship at Steelcase?
I can jump in on this one since I do a lot of interviewing for interns. First and foremost, and I can speak specifically from the IT internship side, we have several different departments that you can apply for an internship in. But from the IT perspective, the first and foremost thing that we're looking for is culture fit. It's not any technical ability. It's not anything other than would people enjoy working around you? Do you fit within the culture, the Steelcase culture fabric? And we do a really thorough job of vetting to make sure that people that we work with are genuine, that they're dependable, because when push comes to shove and all of a sudden a pandemic comes and hits your workplace, can you rely on the person that you're sitting next to? So that is something that we vet for super hard. A couple of other things that we look for are, have they done their research? Why do they want to work for Steelcase? We have a lot of positive aspects for working at Steelcase, and we like to see that interns have taken initiative to do their research and check out, I don't know, some of our social media or some of our engagements with other companies, so that it really should be a partnership. Like, you should be interviewing us as much as we are interviewing you. So that's really important in the interview process. And I think finally, like I mentioned before, curiosity and the willingness to learn. When you jump into a new role, it's going to be really tough. You're going to be thrown into the deep end. So are you going to be able to sink or swim? So yeah, those three things, I think.
And I'll add on there, as Joe talked about the qualities, I think a way of, working with the talent acquisition team, I think to obtain an internship at Steelcase, the best chances for you to do that as a student is to stand out through LinkedIn. If you're in college, make that LinkedIn profile so you can socialize yourself and speak with recruiters and stand out. Also join student organizations. For engineering, you have NSBE, you have a lot of different student organizations that us as employers and corporations engage with. So oftentimes we ask, what is the talent in your organization? Do you have anybody in your group that's looking for an internship? So join those registered student organizations at your school so that you can get connected to employers.
Thank you. Do you have any programs or assistance available for ESL students or young adults to help them get a foot in the door?
That's a great question. So I don't know of any specifically. So Cordell, let me know from an HR perspective if you've heard anything otherwise. I just wrote that down. So whoever asked that question, that was my first sticky of the day that I'm gonna go back and research. But what I would say that's really nice about Steelcase is because it's a global company, we have people literally all over the world. So we have offices in Mexico, we have offices, in Europe, in Asia Pacific, and that spans all over. And so we of course have people who speak all types of different languages. I would say mainly for work purposes, at least, from the work I do, everyone speaks English, but we have groups that connect across the globe, the young professionals groups. There's, I think, an output in Mexico, and sometimes that group meets with the one that's based in the US, which I was a big part of when I was in Grand Rapids, and they are now doing virtual events. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And one of the things, maybe this speaks to the culture at Steelcase as well, is that I would say, especially as a new hire or an intern, people are so excited to help and, meet you. And I would say if you're an intern anywhere, work that to your advantage. And so you can literally email anybody and say, hey, I'm new. I'd love to learn about your role. I'd love to learn about you. And there's so many opportunities for mentorship or forging a connection. And it doesn't have to be someone who you work with directly. So that's what I would say to that answer, but I will definitely look more into those opportunities.
Great, thanks, Christina. And does Steelcase have any virtual internships, or are you exploring virtual internships? And then as a follow-up to that, do you have any programs to help individuals find affordable housing near your headquarters?
I can take this one. This is Will.
Yeah.
So the first question, do we have virtual internships? And are we considering them? The answer is yes, mainly because this summer we were forced to have virtual internships. So we generally our internships happen on site on one of our locations, but obviously with COVID, we had to rethink that, and it came down to whether or not if we wanted to move forward with the internship, and we decided that it was important enough and that we wanted to do it. And so I think in true Steelcase fashion, a lot of people came together, did a lot of brainstorming, designing, gathering feedback from students, and were able to design a program that we do virtually. And it actually opened our minds a little bit, right? We learned that we could do this successfully virtually. So I would not be surprised if you were to see that moving forward. And in terms of resources, yes, we do have campus recruiters that help interns with everything from kind of designing their experience to locating housing and that sort of thing. So as mentioned before, we do, all of our internships are paid, but in addition to that, we also provide a living stipend for students to help, again, with the cost of housing.
Great, thank you very much. So we are now about our hour is just about up. So I want to thank our friends at Steelcase, Will, Cordell, Joe Ginder, Jason, Christina, and Bailey. We so appreciate your time and dedication and being here today. I know many of our youth were not able to. It's a strange week when it comes to high schools suddenly pivoting to virtual. I know some of our specialists today are screen sharing, so you can't actually see that their youth are there participating, but they're there and listening. As I said, this session has been recorded and it will be shared to all of our 3,000 plus youth virtually. So while you may not see them on camera, they will be watching this in the near future. So thank you so very much for your time. To our network, I would like to remind you that this coming Thursday, we have a virtual event with Kalamazoo Valley Community College. Whether you are in the Kalamazoo region or not, this is a really good opportunity for your youth to explore a really high quality post-secondary education option. And for those of you who are in district, there's a really great tuition incentive program. So I highly recommend that your youth attend. As a reminder, please do register in advance. You can do so on our website. The URL is right there. Look under events. And again, thank you, Steelcase, so very much. You are such an outstanding employer, such an outstanding company. We're really grateful to have you join our network today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome.